What's up, Mountaineer Nation? It's your guy, Bernie Mac. Hope everybody is well. I know we've had a rough couple days as a fan base, but we have a very special guest on our show tonight. Super excited to have on. This is a guy that I was a huge fan of when I was in school, legend in the program. Um, and I think everybody that is a Mountaineer fan will know who I'm talking about here. His nickname, the Runaway Beer Truck, legend for West Virginia football. We have Mr. Owen Schmitt is going to be joining the show tonight to talk about a few things, but most specifically, a book that he's putting out, which we love. We're going to talk about. But for everybody that is joining the show tonight, I want to give you a few minutes to join and get ready to jump on with a Mountaineer legend. So if you're listening out there and you have questions for Mr. Owen Schmitt, please be sure to join the show here. You'll have a good opportunity to ask whatever you want, and we'll have some great interactions with one of the greatest, the GOATs in Mountaineer fandom. So, with that being said, I'm going to bring Mr. Schmitt on the stage here. Again, I hope everybody has a few minutes to join in. Get ready to have a conversation with one of the greatest to ever play the fullback position for the West Virginia Mountaineers. So, with that being said, we've got the Runaway Beer Truck, Mr. Owen Schmitt in the house. How we doing, my friend?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
We appreciate you joining, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate we could work it out. Hopefully there's no glitches on my end. It's a snowstorm over here.
Yeah, how'd you guys do with that, Owen? We've got about like 6 inches here outside of Philadelphia, but how are you guys looking where you are?
Um, right now we're probably sitting at 4 inches. It's kind of been on and off all day, but we're supposed to get hit tonight, so we already got a 3 hour delay for the kids in the morning. So I'm sure they're excited about that.
Yeah, I just got notification. My three just had a 2 hour delay, so now they're ready to watch the Polar Express and stay up late. So I think we're in the same boat, my friend. But listen, I really appreciate you joining the show. You and I actually met a long time in Morgantown, just kind of running around, but really excited to have you on and kind of talk about some of the things that you're doing. But before we get into that, obviously, we have a lot of people that are going to join the show tonight. And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about how you thought about Rich Rod coming back to the West Virginia Mountaineers, how he did this first year in the program, and what your expectations are moving forward. So, what do you think about Rich Rod coming back, buddy?
Well, as far as what I've seen the last couple years, really the last decade, 2 decades, um, it's been, it's been rather lackluster. I feel like we kind of lost our identity a little bit when Rich first left. But I feel like it's going to take. Obviously we could see the growing pains from this year. Losing 80 some players before the season and then playing basically at the quarterback and running position your bottom guys. And with the difficulties on the line, I mean, it was a tough year. The thing that I thought was positive that I can take from it is you could see some of that no quit, especially towards the end of the season when guys really started clicking in their head. Look, this is the way they want us to play, and you kind of got to rewire your brain as an athlete because that's not always guys really have to learn that, right? It's really a mentality to play and exhaust the plays fully between the whistles.
Right.
So it was nice to kind of see that finish out, and then it's a tough year, man. I mean, it was a tough year to watch. But I thought there were some good things. I think there's some things that they can improve on next year, hopefully, with getting some guys in the, you know, um, these upcoming classes. I've always probably thought in my head that Rich is going to be more of a developmental coach, regardless of this like era of NIL. I mean, we'll sprinkle in, I'm sure, talent here and there. to get, a certain guy or a certain type of athlete to kind of really fit the scheme. But, you know, we'll see year two. Now that we'll have a full year, we only have one portal to deal with. We're dealing with that now, and then those guys will be locked in, for spring and summer. It's tough if you really think about it. This team's only been together for 6 months.
Right.
That's wild to really think of, what they even got accomplished, this year. But, hey, we beat Pitt. You know what I mean? And people can say what they want to say. That was a big victory, and I know for him to maybe just get off the monkey off a little bit and just kind of, we got what, 4 years, 3-4 years before we play him again.
Right.
So it was tough, man. But I like some of the improvement. It's a bummer seeing some of these cats jump ship, but hey, more power to you. Hey, go do what you got to do. I hope you land somewhere. It's a tough gig out there, man. It's a tough gig.
Yeah, it's so different from when you and Pat and Steve and the core group played, right? I mean, you guys all would have been heavily courted in the NIL era, and it's weird how the game has kind of, I don't want to say morphed into something negative, but I think the things that college fans always loved that differentiated itself from the NFL was we felt like you guys were playing for the love of the game and not the money, right? Like you were playing because you wanted to be a mountaineer, or you had the passion to try and get to the next level. And I feel like some of that has kind of gone away. And now we see, we could go through numerous stories of people that are jumping ship from good programs because they're chasing the dollar. And I feel like that's kind of corrupted college sports to a degree that we've never seen. And we've seen it not only with players, and look, I'm not faulting players. I think players, you got to go where you got to go. But conference realignment's a big thing, right? I mean, as well as I do. I mean, some of the best rivalries we've had in sports, including the backyard brawl, has been totally taken away because of financial incentive and conference realignment going to the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, whoever it may be. And I feel like that's been unfortunate. So I'd be curious to get your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, what can really be said about it? I mean, the NIL is completely turned the league upside down. Now we're worried about a cash bag versus, playing from the heart. Look, if it's tough to remember 20 years ago, I know for some people, but really understand what Rich is about as far as a football coach. He's not going to necessarily just go for the 5-star kids. That's not what he's really looking for. And I think that almost like helps him with what's kind of going on. All them other guys are distracted with this crazy talent here and there. And I get that. We're going to catch some of those guys too. We're going to be in the mix. We had a couple 4-stars that were, committed to Penn State. Penn State lost their coach. They committed to us now. So, there's stuff that's going to happen. But we're going to get tough, gritty kids. We need to regain our identity of who we were as a football team. Mm-hmm. And I think we will. And a lot of people have been saying things about these 3-star recruits. Well, let me tell you something. The way you get stars is by going to these camps. And guess what? Those camps run the star show. Okay. So like, if you're not involved in these camps, and you're not going to gain that 4 and 5. Okay. It just doesn't work like that. So there's a lot of 3-star guys that we got that probably are 4-star guys. You know what I mean? They probably are, or they're teetering right there where they could have been, or maybe they just didn't go to enough of those rivals camps or whatever else, the sponsorship camps to get those stars. So I'm not too worried about that. I know what they see in players, and they look for tough kids, right? That love football. They love the process, and they've talked to these kids. And if you really look into what some of these new recruits say about Rich and the staff is, man, it feels like home. It's stuff that you want to hear, and it's not stuff that you just want to hear. It's stuff that you're going to be able to do. You're going to be able to come in and compete. I mean,
Right.
there's no question there. That I mean, he's probably one of the if not, the competitiveness just oozes out of him, right? And he wears it on his sleeve. So, we talk about this and we laugh about this hard edge attitude. I don't think anybody is hitting the Versa climber at 5 a.m. for 30, 40 minutes like Rich is. So, he's a seasoned vet, and he understands that consistency is the key to winning ball games. And once we start getting that attitude, drawn to the players, and they start understanding that. Look at some of the guys who just got here. Reed Carrico is a great one. What he said in his out statement, he will always, the best decision of his life, he will always be a Mountaineer, and he will be. He will always be a Mountaineer. Mountaineer Nation will always love him. He will always be welcome. I'm glad he got the opportunity to kind of understand that. And guess what? He's going to be a big part in, the first guys that came in, right, and had to understand this. It was a big wake up call for a lot of guys, but they started it, and now we can get the train rolling, right, and add on top of it. But as far as the NIL stuff goes, I'm sorry, I got a little sidetracked there on the side mission, but I think it's just, I don't know. We're 5-10 years out of really getting something even solidified as to, what is concrete and what's really going on. There's so much stuff going on, whether it be agents or how is this money supposed to be dispersed? Where are we supposed to get it from? Are we financially or are we educating these kids on this money? I mean, some of the money that's being thrown around is life-changing money. Could be life-changing money for these kids, never playing again, never have to play again, because, and just invest it correctly. And I think there's some things that what we're doing as a staff is going to help us out here in the long run.
Yep. No, and I think that was great feedback, man. I mean, everybody, we could all be armchair quarterbacks, right? But you guys lived it. You've played at that level. You've been in that locker room, and we could always sit here and give feedback or do whatever, but you guys are the ones that directly experienced it. So I want to tell you too, I mean, I'm a huge Rich Rod fan. I was so happy to see him coming back. And if you ever watch our shows, you find me and Brad and other people typically defending Rich Rod against what I feel is very unfair bias and the expectations of the program, right? Like, we've had a lot of people come on the show and say, "Oh, well, Curt Cignetti, we could have had him, and now he's at Indiana and he's in the college playoff and he just beat Ohio State." And that's all well and good, and there's a tie to the program, but I like the way Rich Rod builds things, right? And like you've said, developing 3 stars into 4 and 5 stars, that's kind of been who he is. But I think he commands a level of loyalty and respect by the players that's very unique in today's day and age. And I think that's what sets him apart. And there's been a lot of pushback like, hey, he's going to develop these guys, he's going to coach them up, and then all of a sudden these guys are going to jump to an NIL school that's paying them X amount of dollars. And I think that's a fair criticism, because no matter what happens, like you said, there's life-changing money on the table, and Rich Rod could be this guy's mentor and friend. But if somebody throws $3 million at him, where do you weigh loyalty and financial security, right? So I love what Rich Rod's doing. I know this year has been not what people, I think, had unrealistic expectations for. But I think the comparisons against a guy like Cignetti is totally unfair. And quite frankly, if we had a guy like Cignetti, then you always have to worry about him walking toward the exit and getting pulled to somebody else. Where we know Rich Rod's a lifelong Mountaineer. He made the mistake in leaving for Michigan, and I think he's realized that, and he wants to retire here. And I think that's what we have to focus on, right? I mean, do you agree with all that, or am I like kind of off base in my assessment?
Not at all. I think, well, let's just knock out the Curt thing real quick. Cignetti, Signetti brought 17 of his players, or 17 plus players to Indiana. All right, that's both sides of the football.
Right.
Okay, so it's not like we brought two or three from Jack State. I mean, there's a completely different dynamic there. JMU is and I'm not ripping on Jack State at all, but is a very well endowed program. I mean, they have great areas of recruiting there. That school has been on the rise for a long time. Signetti's obviously put a lot of work and effort in those guys, and they were able to take that core group, right, and go to Indiana, right, and basically already have an established culture. So that's a huge difference between how both these guys came. He didn't go there and then all of a sudden 80 guys hit the portal and he's completely starting from ground zero.
Right.
And then as far as Rich goes, hey, look, Rich was offered life-changing money, 20 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for a program that he thought, he was going to, probably, it's the grass is greener, deal. And it's Michigan. You know what I mean? Like, I get it. He's from West Virginia and this and this and that, and I understand that wholeheartedly. But it's Michigan. It's a blue blood program. It's a once in a lifetime opportunity to be able to coach at a school like that. And, I thought what he was asking for back then, and who really is going to know all the details, but, now we have all that stuff. He's very fair in how he works his contracts out. They're very motivated by success, right, and achievements. I think, you don't get second chances like this to come back to a place where you started something great and kind of left when you really didn't reach the top yet. You were still climbing, right?
Right.
And, now it's going to take some time to kind of rebuild that, but I don't think it's going to take a ton of time. I think it's going to take, another year or two, and you're going to be right there in the thick of things again. And you're going to be in the conversation of the playoff, and I truly wholeheartedly believe that. I was fortunate to play in the NFL. When I went to the NFL, I was looking for West Virginia. I never found it, right? It wasn't the same, and it was just a very special place. I mean, not saying that people weren't committed, but like everybody was, it's just a different type of commitment. It really was. And just the way he builds his programs, the accountability piece. And I know, anybody that's great, right, or any coach that's got a great program, those pillars are instilled there, said differently or in different ways. But he's got something special, and he really, to me, is West Virginia football. And I think with what they're building now, the financial backing that they have, I mean, we're going to have a decent bag to go get, players that we need. And, I don't know how he's going to work all that out. That's between them, you know what I mean? But I think they're definitely headed in the right direction.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that's great feedback again, Owen. I think, I've talked about it a lot on this show too. For people that don't realize what Rich Rod was asking for when he left for Michigan, I blame this squarely on our athletic department and board, and I've said that numerous times, right? Rich Rod has kind of went through and he came in and he built the program into a level of national prominence we've never seen. And when he was getting ready, and he'd been tied to the Alabama job and all the other jobs, right? Remember, like those rumors that were out there. And he stayed loyal. And all he asked for from Ed Passalong, who was the AD at the time in that board, was, hey, I just need some facility improvements. I need some raises for my assistant coaches, like stuff that we wouldn't even blink at, considering the level of prominence he brought the program to. And if it was Oliver Luck in that position at that time, Rich Rod would have remained the coach. I firmly believe that. But I think Rich Rod had built something so special and just did not feel the support that he needed to feel from the board and the AD that it put him in a box. And I mean, when you're that level of success where you're almost on the verge of a national championship and they're not giving you an extra couple $100,000, like, how do you not take that as total disrespect? And I've said that before, and that's why I've defended Rich Rod leaving. And I think to your point, you hit the nail on the head, right? It's one of the winningest, if not the winningest program in college sports. And they were knocking on his door. He said no to Alabama. And yeah, you can't blame the guy for leaving if you're not feeling supported. If we would have supported him the way he wanted to and he left, it would be a different story. But that wasn't the case. So I think for everybody that like gave Rich Rod a lot of shit about leaving at that time, they just didn't know the story that was going on at that point and what college athletics was then and what it is now. Two totally different entities. So I think again, if we would have had Oliver Luck in the AD position at that time, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. We would have had a couple national championships under our belt. You know, Pat would have had a hell of a year instead of being under Castile the following year, where he really didn't like that guy from a OC perspective. And I think it would have been a different story, you know, and it's unfortunate, but we can't change the past, right? But one thing I do want to ask you too, on there's always been a lot of, I guess, chatter about former players coming back and not feeling welcome. And this is something I've advocated for a long time. And I know Brad has as well, right? Like, you put on the gold and blue, you should be treated like a king when you come back to this program. You should be, your family, you guys should have front row seats, 50-yard line, be welcome, you know, just have that embrace for what you gave to the program. Now, I don't want to put you on the spot too much, but we heard a lot of chatter behind the scenes about how former players were really not given the level of love and respect that they should have. And we know Rich Rod always did that. He was great at it. But then when you had Holgerson and Brown kind of step in, we felt like they lost a lot of the connective tissue between guys like yourself, Pat White, Steve Slayton, you know, just anybody that really had an impact on the program that could have had an impact on recruits that would have really done something different to help us continue to succeed as a program. Again, you don't have to divulge too much, but I'm curious to what your thoughts are there, because I've heard it locally, but I'm curious from a former player's perspective.
Yeah, I think it's kind of two things. I think it's a matter of guys not solely believing in exactly what those coaches were doing.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Sure.
And then, you know, I think it was a matter of, you know, we didn't really get, you know, Rich comes back. Obviously, he's been hearing about this for some time. And, you know, the first thing he does here is he straight up just invites all the teams right back to Morgantown, right? We're getting the gang back together here.
Yep.
You know, and he's forging that bond, that Mountaineer bond again. You know, we did a picnic last spring, which I wasn't able to come to, but a lot of players were. It was a beautiful time. Everybody had a great time. And, you know, those are the things, you know, it's very welcoming on game day. You know, things are opened up where we can take our families into the Hall of Traditions and see the wonderful stuff that's been created. I mean, you know, and just to back up a second for what we're talking about, Rich getting facilities, we're about to build a huge project in this press box.
Yeah.
Like, major upgrade there. I don't know, you know, how things are going to work out. You know, I'm always dropping hints and hoping Ren and you know, Mr. Bennett can you know, hear my words and say, hey, look, how about a players suite in that new giant press box facility that you guys are about to put in? Because talking to McAfee, you know, and he's obviously privy to, you know, every location in college football. He's like, man, they just schools treat their alum a lot different than how they treat them here.
Yep.
So, I think as far as now, it's been great. I was back for the Sugar Bowl deal. Um, that was a wonderful time. It was great seeing those old guys. And everybody did feel welcome. We got tickets and stuff like that. But it would be nice. I don't even think guys really ask for that much when they do come back. Being able to come. And here's kind of how I feel about it now, since they're paying players. Hey, look, the least we could do is make sure that players are welcome and have the opportunity to grab tickets and that kind of deal. Like, that's the least. And at bare min, before this really gets out of control with this NIL stuff, because I don't think it's just going to end at 2016. I think as years go on, it's going to keep getting pushed back and pushed back and pushed back, just because the amount of money is going to be absolutely ridiculous. I mean, I would think, just even as far as maybe some sort of, and I'm getting way out there, but like, maybe some kind of medical package or something for guys. I mean, a lot of guys sustained injuries and stuff like that. Not so much saying for cold hard cash, but maybe there's some sort of medical package for those guys back in the day. But I think, as far as what we got going on right now, Rich does a great job with it. As far as, when Neil and Dana were here, there wasn't the bond. You know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't as welcoming. You went into the weight room and, all the records from our years are gone.
Right.
You know what I mean? It was like we're wiped out. So that's disheartening, you know what I mean? Because it should be, if anything, you want to keep all that old stuff, right? So you can see the richness in the history and the traditions.
Yeah.
But, hey, it is what it is. We're at where we're at. I'm pumped, man. I'm really pumped because I just know how it works, man. I know how they operate. I know we need a couple key things here and there, but I think they're already in the lab cooking, and we're gonna be where we need to be next year.
Yeah, no, well said. And I mean, I could tell you too, from a fan perspective, we felt that, right? Like, I mean, we didn't know what was going on behind the scenes, but we definitely felt like there wasn't the connection to you, Pat McAfee, Steve Slayton, like these guys that were legends in the program. Just everybody. I mean, you look at even like going back and you look at Stedman Bailey, Tavon Austin, like we should have all these guys, all of you guys coming back, being celebrated for what you did. Because look, I mean, at the end of the day, you gave up your college experience to put on the gold and blue, right? Like you guys could have just had a blast and went through and joined a fraternity and had a good time, but you guys put in the time and the work. Not everybody understands what it means to run up that law school hill, right? Like, and there was a disconnect from when Holmes came in after Stu, and it just felt like we kind of lost that connective tissue to some of the greats in the program. Major comes around, but you haven't seen Bolger, we haven't seen like Ivy, like all these guys that also built it through the Nealon era, and that's just not how it should be for any program. Right? Like you guys should walk in, you should be treated like royalty. You guys, you put so much of yourself into the program. Your family should know that impact and that sacrifice that you made. And again, I'm speaking as a fan, but also somebody that looks at sports as a whole and says, man, we're kind of losing our way if we don't really respect the fact that, one, you guys were kids at that time. I mean, we're adults now, and that's great, but giving up that time and that college experience to do what you did needs to be respected and cherished. And it just wasn't always the case after that. And I think Richard, God love him, he brings that back. When you have a guy like Pat McAfee that's singing his praises, putting West Virginia consistently in the press. I loved seeing you on the show that day. When we came back in, we had Garrett and everybody on. Now, I wish that result would have been different. But again, just seeing you guys around the program again, for all of us that are alumni and remembered, the greatness that you guys had and what you did, that means a lot to all of us. And I mean, dude, I have this up in my home gym, which is funny, right? And I know you're gonna look at this and say, "Oh man, here we go." But this is one of my favorite covers of all time, right here.
Oh yeah,
This
baby.
cover right here is up in my home gym, and I will never forget those years, man. Like we still got, and I'll even do you one better here. I'm gonna make you nostalgic for a second. Here you go. You ready? Hold on now. I got something good for you. And this is gonna be. I was at this game. My wife and I. By the way, she went to Pitt. Don't hate me, but she went to Pitt, right? But I had to marry. I moved to Pitt after school, and I had her come to the game with me, and I'll never forget this. We were watching this game, and here you go. The Runaway beer truck right here coming up. One of the greatest plays I've ever seen.
Owen Schmitt, like a runaway beer truck down the sidelines. Big Owen Schmitt, touchdown.
Now, to put that axe in to OU after we feel like we should have been in the national championship. I mean, we all know that game against Pitt, with Pat getting hurt and everything that went on. I mean, how do you feel about that? Oh, we lose you, Owen? Hold on. We lost Owen for a second, everybody. Everybody hang tight. He'll be back. How great is it to have a guy like Owen Schmitt on our show, though, everybody? I mean, he is truly a legend, and here he is. He's come back online now. Sorry, Owen. I don't know if I booted you off when I showed that clip or what happened, but were you able to see that clip?
Fiesta Bowl?
Yeah, buddy. That was one of the greatest runs I've ever seen from a fullback, man. That was I was there in the stands. I'll never forget it. That was when I knew we had the game. And that was just a special moment, considering what happened with Rich Rod leaving, you guys taking on what, in my opinion, was the best team in the country at that time, by the way. For everybody that doesn't remember that season, I felt like you guys would have waxed Ohio State in the national championship game. And Oklahoma, just for whatever reason, they were lights out that year. And to see you guys put a whooping on them, 48-28, I mean, with everything that got on and that speech from Coach Stu with the never forget speech, I mean, it was special, man. It was really special.
Yeah, leave no doubt, dude. He pulled that one from the depths, man. He was saving that one. That was man, super inspirational. What a hell of a game. Fabulous opponent. We were basically given zero chances. I still have the actual poster of the whole U.S. in red and the only state, the greatest state in the nation, right?
Yeah.
Was covered in blue there with the number. They gave out posters after the game, and I have one, and I have it all framed up. But yeah, what a night, man. What a way to go out. Obviously it would have been nice if we could have taken care of business, but that in itself for me was a great cherry on top.
Yep. Well, I think we've stepped on Pitt's throat enough through the years. We've had some heartbreak under Neil Brown, which I still can't figure out how we lost those 2 games, but we'll move on from that. But listen, I've taken up 35 minutes of your time. The real reason I'm really excited to have you on the show tonight, too, is to talk about the book you wrote. And I mean, for me, as a dad of 3 young kids, I love this kind of stuff. I saw Deuce's book come out. So when we were able to kind of see your book come out, I'm gonna put it up right here, everybody, so you can kind of see it. I love this kind of stuff. And I think it's so inspirational for a generation of kids that are looking for inspiration and have kind of gotten away, from the values that have created great athletes like yourself and too many participation trophies and that kind of thing, right? But at the end of the day, I think when you have inspiration like this, it's unique, and to see you giving back to the community as you always have, but to do it in this fashion, I think is commendable. So I guess my first question is, what was the inspiration behind the book? Why did you write it? What brought this whole thing on?
Well, Cassie, my better half, she's a pre-K teacher, so she had, been kind of pushing the idea on me a little bit and floating the idea around. And I said, well, I don't know where I would start, trying to write a children's book. So I'm going to need some help. And she kind of laid out, a platform for me a little bit, and we settled on a counting book. So then I came up with kind of the themes of each number and the story, and then she helped me with the writing aspect, the rhyming aspect of it. And then her cousins, Rachel and Josh Hendricks, they're the ones who did the illustrations. West Virginians, they'd been basically illustrating their entire lives. So it was cool to get their perspective on just the ideas that I threw out there. So they're all original pieces. We met a couple weeks, or I want to say maybe a month or a couple or 3 weeks before the book was about to get let out, and they showed me all the illustrations. It was super cool how they did them all. They're way high. I mean, really cool stuff. Really cool stuff. And was super pumped about it. Just like on this main page here, it's the last page of the book, but we took this year's pit score and put it up on the scoreboard. Once you see the full thing at the end of the book, you get to see the score or whatever. But just some neat things. And then there's some really cool Easter eggs for like fans that are West Virginia fans. Your kids are obviously going to be learning. They're learning how to count. Each page has a significant number with certain images. And then, it's great for obviously kids' vocabulary and when they start to learn how to read as well. That's another piece. And then for the adults, which is the best part, is you get to see these like little Easter eggs in the backgrounds of all these illustrations. And, it's just fun thing that, kind of like what you were saying. It's a cool, if you want your child to succeed, they got to learn how to, they have to know how to count. They have to know how to read. And this is some cool bonding time. It's not just some random, kids book that you got to read to them that, there's really no, intimate feel there like this. We've all lived some of these stories that each page, each number like puts up. So it's a very cool piece. And, in the end of it, the story kind of, starts out how, every little kid has a dream. And then I get to, throughout the book, I get to live my dream. And then at the end, for me, the ultimate dream, the ultimate goal is becoming a dad. And that's the number one thing, and having a family and that thing. So it's a really heartfelt book, and we put a lot of work into it, really enjoy it. We hope people enjoy it as well. And like you said, I hope it's one of those books that everyone gets a chance to read and spend time with their young ones.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's awesome, man. I mean, I love seeing this kind of stuff. And for a lot of our fans that don't know, it's funny, Owen, right? Because I mean, I'm a little older, and people always look at your name and just think of the success you've had with West Virginia. But what a lot of people don't know is that you were on the scout team and you were a walk-on, right?
Yep.
And to do that and then have the level of success that you had, not only at West Virginia, But, then you get drafted by the Seahawks. You go on and play for the Seahawks, the Eagles. I mean, it's a very inspirational story of how you just, again, achieved your dreams by putting in the work, putting in the effort. And I think this book is probably going to reemphasize a lot of that as well. But if there's a message behind the book, what would you say the primary message behind the book is?
The primary message behind the book is, never give up. You know what I mean? Always have that goal in mind and that dream in mind, and hard work overcomes all, right? You got to put it into it. You get out what you put in, just like in life. That's taught me that. I laugh with actually Jed. We do I don't know if we do a podcast. It's called In the Gun, but we laugh sometimes about it. Just the story of Rich and stuff. But there's no substitute for hard work. And let's see. I think it's page 4 here. Let's see. I'm looking through mine real quick. There's a couple references. Actually, the school that I played for, River Falls, that I walked on from, they're actually this year they're deep in the playoffs for the first time in school history. So they play, I believe it's John Hopkins. That it's at home in River Falls, and if they win that, then they'll be in the Stag Bowl this year for Division III. So yeah, there's so much to, as far as like a young man now. I try telling some of the kids, because I do, I had coached some single A football. Look, if you love football, man, okay, you don't have to go to Division I to play football, right? For it to, the whole point is to play, right? Mm-hmm. And to get those 4 more years, because football is a very unusual sport. You only really get 4 years of it in high school, right? And you can play some stuff when you're younger, but for the most part, what kids get is they either get maybe a year or 2 in middle school, and then they get their high school ball, and that's it, right? And it's like a breakup that you don't really, it's coming, right? And you never, but you don't want to know it's coming, right? Like you don't want to think it's going to happen that quick, and it goes so fast. But it's just, it's for me, it's the greatest game I've ever played, and there's so much love and passion. It's taught me so much about life, and just to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and put another foot forward. But I know that was kind of a long roundabout, but it's really about hard work, determination, and just keep on trucking, right?
Yeah, no, again, man, love the message. So I coach 4 of my daughter's basketball teams at multiple ages, and I have all the kids on the team read the Kobe Bryant book, because that was the epitome of just putting in work. I mean, he wasn't the most talented guy initially, but he had a mentality where you put in 10 hours and somebody else is putting in 2, and then you multiply that by 365 days a year. You're not going to tell me you're going to be better than me. And I love that message, right? Because it teaches kids, and it teaches everybody as you're kind of growing up, like, hey, if you set your sight on something, you have the ability to achieve it depending on what you put into it. And I think Rich Rod does a fantastic message of communicating that. And just, the book that you're writing and have written, and I'm assuming there's going to be more in the queue. It's a great message to pass along to kids today, where unfortunately we've seen a lot of this being blurred by, political ideology and, things that really shouldn't be kind of factoring into kids and who they are. And that's something I protect my kids adamantly from, is like, hey, if you want something, I'll teach you how to get to it, but you have to put in the work to get there and do it. And I think this book and your history and what you've achieved as a person, professionally and personally, speaks to this. And I love it. I mean, we just dropped a link now. We're going to promote it for you on Amazon. You can buy this book, everybody, on Amazon. We're going to drop it on our Twitter page, our YouTube, everything. But this is a great book. You got to pick it up. Anytime you could get insight from a guy like Owen Schmitt, who's lived every aspect of the game professionally and personally, and has a family that he can relate to that, you're getting some good pearls of wisdom on how to be a person that you can achieve your goals and be a person that's worthwhile. So I think it's a great book.
Well, I appreciate it, brother. And looking forward to your feedback. Let me know what the kiddos think.
Yep. No, listen, I've got 3 that are 13, 11, and 8, and they're all going to read it. So I'll shoot you a message on X and give you the feedback, but I'm excited, man. And kudos. I mean, this is not an easy thing to do either, Owen. I give you a lot of credit. You're putting your story out there in a different way, right? It's not easy to be that exposed. And again, I give you a lot of credit for doing this, man. Like, I know what your intent is, but you still have to put yourself out there to get the message across. So, it's not always easy to do. And it's just been great to see you around the program. I really appreciate the time tonight and looking forward to having some more conversations as we go through. So please feel free to join the show again, and we'll be sure to drop this out and we'll give you some feedback on the book. But till then, my man, cheers, beers, and Mountaineers, right?
Heck yeah. Appreciate it, brother.
All right, my man. Be good. Good to see you.
Take care. Again. Thank you. Yep.
You
bye.
got it. Bye.
Some Morgantown, we break it first. W pride, we quench your thirst. No spin, all truth, loud and proud. Mountaineer nation, say it loud. The voice of Morgantown. VON.